Thanks to Sebas's friend Mar, we were able to take a trip down to Tulum, where we enjoyed good food, good drinks, and lovely company. Mar's friend was kind enough to host us for the night, and the guys worked hard on their coconut opening skills. I'm impressed everyone's finger stayed on. On our way out of Tulum the next day, we stopped by a cenote to cool off for a bit. I have been to Tulum a couple times now, and I love spending time in the cenotes. Each one I've been to has been so different. This one was the shallowest cenote I've been to, but it was still just as refreshing. Once we were back on Isla Mujeres, we took one night out to a hostel on the island. It was a beautiful place to be, and probably one of the nicest hostels I've ever seen from the outside. The storms were becoming more frequent in Isla. We were lucky to have made it to Tulum while we did, because after returning we started to have an issue with the anchor dragging. The worst was at night at about 3 a.m. when we had a strong storm with 30-knot winds come through. Juan and I reset the anchor twice before deciding to keep the engine running and wait until dawn so that we can make it to the inner lagoon. The port officer only allows anchoring in there when big storms come, as the bay on the outside is known for less than ideal anchoring, and dragging anchors is a common occurrence there. When we started to drag, so did about 3 other boats that I could see. You could tell everyone was up and awake, and I heard lots of windlasses working hard. This video, taken by a fellow sailor, was the next morning at about 10 a.m. when, according to a few folks, the winds got up to 60 knots in the bay. I only saw 35 in the lagoon, but winds are known to be stronger out in the bay, and it was definitely the strongest storm I have anchored in before. Luckily, all boats were safe, minus some damage to a few, and we didn't budge an inch in the lagoon. After a few days in the lagoon and saying goodbye to Juan as he made his way back to Colombia, it was time for Sebas and I to start making our way to Guatemala. The windows were becoming smaller to make it down with good winds, so as soon as one opened up, we set off, even knowing that we might hit some rough seas just north of Banco Chinchorro. We had amazing sailing going past Cozumel, but the next day the seas started getting bigger and the wind died off a bit. Sebas and I decided that it wasn't worth fighting the current in 10-foot seas with little wind, and eventually decided to pull off for some rest in Punta. Punta is a cute little village right next to the Biosphere Shan, which is a 1.3 million acre biosphere reserve and remains the largest protected area in the Mexican Caribbean. Unfortunately, the sargassum has affected the white sandy beaches and bright blue water, but it was still a lovely place to go for a walk. Although we did come across one spot hidden in the mangroves that was full of plastics that had been washed ashore from out in the Caribbean Sea. After our little walk, and we were back on the beach in town, we noticed the excitement of another sailboat coming in when the local folks were pointing it out and announcing it on the local VHF. There is no cell service here and very limited internet, so that's the main way folks communicate in Punta Ellen. The boat turned out to be our friends' low expectations. The next day, 2 more friends showed up. All had felt the same as Sebas and I and just wanted a bit of a break. It was pretty fun to have the company of low expectations again, as none of us had planned to stop here on the way to Guatemala. With the limited internet, we were able to find another good window to continue south, and once again found some excellent sailing. Sebas and I also picked up a backpacker who was camping out on the beach in Punta Ellen and was interested in sailing down to Guatemala with us. Shorter watches, yay! And to top it off, Sai did a fantastic job having never sailed before. To Tres Puntas after dark, and with a very rolly anchorage, didn't get much sleep that night. I was awake as the sun was coming up and the rolling sea calmed down, and we were greeted by a spectacular sunrise and a first view of the surrounding mountains. It's the Truth had finally made it to Guatemala. After staying in Tres Puntas for a couple of nights, due to customs being closed on Sundays, we made our way over to check in into Guatemala in Livingston, just across the bay. So just pulling into Livingston and I'm going to try and make it across the sandbar without a tow. So we'll see how this goes. We didn't make it across without a tow. I draw 6 foot 8 inches and there was no way we were going to make it across even at high tide. But it was worth the effort in my opinion. We finally gave in and got the infamous tow by a local boat which tips you over with a halyard from your mast. Unfortunately it was hard to steer and take video, so you can't quite tell here, but we got tipped over quite a bit to make it over the sandbar going into Livingston. It was quite an experience. As you can tell here, Livingston is a colorful, busy little fishing town that sits at the mouth of the Rio Dulce. All checked in and heading up the Rio Dulce. It's gorgeous up here, so I'm really excited. So, man, it's like a different world. So excited to finally be heading up the Rio Dulce. After the short check-in process, we raised the anchor and started to make our way up the river to Rio Dulce. It was an incredible experience motoring up through the canyons as we passed by locals on their dugout canoes fishing and the launches who take folks up and down the river. After passing through the canyons, we thought it would be fun to put Sebas on his paddleboard and tow him up the river. Because why not? It's a long way up and we needed some entertainment. Yeah. There he goes. We made it to the first leg and to Texas Bay, where we ended up actually anchoring as nighttime was getting closer and we weren't going to make it all the way to Rio Dulce in the daylight. But the next morning, we continued on and continued to take in the amazing scenery that surrounded us. We had finally made it. Only 4 months earlier had I bought It's the Truth, and she had taken me all the way down from Norwalk, Connecticut to Virginia, Florida, Mexico, and now to her new home for the hurricane season. I was feeling all the emotions, those of relief, happiness, disbelief, excitement, and above all, pure joy when I got to do some laundry and step into a real shower. This is our home for the next 4 to 5 months. Time to explore the surrounding area and get some work done on It's the Truth. Until next time, cheers!